to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast with your hosts Griffin Palmer, CJ Hickman, Jason Cabrera, and Ryan Mitchell.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is Tuesday, September 11th. Ooh, rough date. This is the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, the official podcast of thefantasyfootballfanatics.com. I'm your host, Griffin Palmer, joined by CJ the Hitman Hickman and Jason Cabrera. What's up, guys?
Oh, my God. Can't stand you. Doing all right.
It's so late / early in the morning. These double Monday night games, they make it go so long.
That was long.
I also love how it's like a running joke now on like our social media. Like, I still don't know who that Ryan Mitchell guy is, but hey, I like the show.
Yes. He's definitely not a thing anymore.
Oh, it's so funny.
He's never wrong. Never wrong.
He's never wrong because he never makes a bold prediction. Yeah. I mean, he still does some analytical stuff, but yeah, you probably never hear his voice on the show again, so we should probably get that intro redone. But anyway,
if you don't play, you can't lose.
Exactly. It was like those memes, like you can't go 0-16 if you start off with a tie. But anyway, welcome to the Fantasy Football Fanatics podcast, everybody. So we have an amazing show for you guys today. We're going to be doing what we do every year. We're getting to our season form already, our rotation of every single week, where we're going to start off by giving you all the studs and duds from week number 1, take a look at some of our top waiver wire targets from week number 2, all the top headlines from around the league. There's a lot to get to today, as is typical for all Tuesday shows going forward. And before that, just make sure you guys subscribe wherever you're listening. We are a year-round show. We'll be here every single week to give you the information that you can hopefully use to your advantage to win your league and bring home that fantasy title. So with that, let's start with our warm-up, which is a warm-up that we've done every single year, and it's because it's the time of year where it's completely necessary. And it's that you just please, it's basically our things that you need to remember coming off week 1. And for starters, my thing is always don't freak out. Everyone always wants to overcorrect, trade all these players that they spent high on that they think are busts. They think that these guys who have overperformed, they're not worth trading. There's a lot of analytics behind, why we've done what we've done on research to this point. Yes, we've learned a lot more as we've started week 1, but it's not any reason to overreact. I think you guys would agree, correct?
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and just because you lost week 1, your season is not over. Because guess what? 50% of all of your leagues, this is a fact, every single league you're in, half the players lost. So you're not down and out. You started off on the wrong foot. There's still a long season. We've seen plenty of people come back from a 1-4, 1-5 season and start to go on and win their leagues. So that's what we're here for. Don't drop your guys or sell low on the guys you spent high on. Try to buy low on those guys who did underperform, though, because people will be overreacting. Just keep a calm head, and that's kind of the message we want to get out to you guys before we even get into the recap of the season. Anything you guys want to add?
Oh, man, you did it. You covered it.
CJ desperately wanting to go to bed. All right, let's keep moving. Let's move into our studs and duds from week number 1. Now, remember, all of our scoring is based on a 6-point per passing touchdown, and we base this on standard scoring as well for your PPR. Obviously, we love half-point per reception, but the masses do play standard, so we reflect those numbers. And we'll go through our quarterbacks, and your top quarterback I almost said on the season. I'm still in off-season form. Yeah. So far on the season, yeah, it works. For week number 1 is Ryan freaking Fitzpatrick. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fitzmagic is back, going for 50.28 fantasy points. What world is this where Ryan Fitzpatrick goes off for 50 fantasy points? 417 yards, 4 touchdowns, also added 36 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. On fire. Guys, Ryan Fitzpatrick, is he a thing?
I mean, he was a thing last week. I mean, it was a division game, and they punched the division opponent in the mouth. So that's basically what that game was.
A game against an opponent that we expected to be good, too. Sorry, go ahead, Jason.
I was going to say you have to be careful with Fitzpatrick because he does this. He's peaks and valleys. He has this amazing game. Oh my gosh, how amazing! And then he'll be absolutely awful. The next week. So with him, it's about consistency. You have to be very, very careful when you're dealing with him.
I agree. Other guy. No, okay. So next out on our list, Drew Brees doing Drew Brees things, going in for 37.5 fantasy points, 439 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 2-point conversion. I mean, that's Drew Brees. You invested high on him. We know his ceiling is the number 1 quarterback on any given week, and here he is competing in a top 3 finish. So there you go, Drew freaking Brees. Same game. What a shootout. And then your number 3 quarterback on the week was Patrick Mahomes, 36.3 fantasy points, 256 yards, 4 passing touchdowns, another 21 yards on the ground. Wow.
I like it.
The Chargers defense, which we were talking up as potentially a nice sleeper candidate, they look kind of silly in this game. Patrick Mahomes
didn't get off the bus.
He looked pretty comfortable out there. Are we buying into this going forward, or do you think this was just a really good week for him, I guess, is the question.
I'd wait and see. I mean, he has absolutely the upside to do this every single week. I mean, he's got an arm. He's very smart. You know, he looked good. He looked like he was not a rookie, which basically he is this year because he didn't play last year. So I think that I would not have a problem rostering him. Are we saying is he a plug and play? Just plug him in and you know, sit back and watch the points come in? Not yet. Give me another couple games of consistency. You know, this could be his ceiling. He could never do this again. You know what I mean? So my answer is, yeah, I would say Patrick Mahomes could definitely do this every week.
There you go.
Yeah, I would roster him. I mean, especially if you're dealing with you got a quarterback situation where you know you drafted Wentz or you know you got Rodgers. You don't know what's going to go on with him going forward. So if you just need a guy to plug and play for a couple of weeks, I would pick up Mahomes.
Yeah,
sure.
Or what about your number 6 quarterback on the I keep wanting to say on the season. I'm still in off-season form on the week, which was Joe Flacco. You know, played only a half of a game and 236 yards, 3 touchdowns. Yeah,
typical.
Yeah,
there's the Raven in there. Typical.
Got a force. Hey, that was an amazing
all
game.
the way down to 6.
Typical.
I mean, okay, Phillip Rivers, Aaron Rodgers, then Joe Flacco from where we were. I mean, that's he finished ahead of Tom Brady and Russell Wilson. So I'm just saying, it worked out. To be fair, it was against the team that we're all expecting to have the number 1 pick in next year's draft. But still, it happened in a half of football. Imagine a full game. Oh. All right, moving on to the running backs, your top studs. Alvin Kamara, 34 fantasy points, 29 yards on the ground. Not too impressive, but he got 2 touchdowns on those 29 yards with only 8 attempts, which is concerning. But he capped that off with 9 receptions on 12 attempts for 112 yards receiving, another receiving touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. That's what he does. He is used more in the pass than in the run, and he is dangerous when used there underneath. It's hard to cover a guy coming out of the backfield, and he makes people pay. So, yep, that's Alvin Kamara. That's what you invested in. Very much boom-bust because of the lack of attempts, but, I mean, if he's this heavily involved in the passing game, then the floor kind of goes up, especially in PPR. James Conner, a guy who I picked up in every single league that I could and started in all but one, our listener league. God dang it. I forgot I had him in that league, to be completely honest. And I would have won my game if I had. Out of all 21 leagues, that's the only game I lost. And I would have won it if I put him in, which I did in every other league I had him in. Feels bad. 29.2 fantasy points, 31 attempts, 135 yards, 2 touchdowns, another 57 yards through the air. That's some pretty heavy usage. That's exciting. We always knew that the Steelers are a team that likes to feature one guy, and with Le'Veon Bell holding out, that is James Conner. So I expect this to be, I mean, maybe not this result, but this level of effort and possibly touches. They've said they want to get him over 20 touches and at least a handful of receptions every game. So if he gets about 25 touches a game, I would not be surprised every game going forward. I mean, he's their featured back until Bell comes back. So, and also, we talked about that narrative. If he goes out and performs, Bell loses the ability to really kind of he loses his leverage. So, I mean, we might not see Bell for a while now. James Conner could be a thing. So if he's out there, I didn't put him in my waiver wire pickups because I think he's owned now in more than half of leagues. Actually, I should probably verify that. If so, I'm going to fix mine very, very quickly. Yeah, he is. He's owned in 60% of leagues. Okay, I was just making sure. I thought he was, but I just wanted to be sure. So with our waiver wire pickups, they have to be available in under 50 or over 50% of leagues, and he's owned in 60%. So that doesn't count. But yeah, James Conner, he's a monster. If you have him, use him. If you see him out there, if you're in one of those 40% of leagues where he's available, burn everything, your whole waiver, pick him up. Your waiver priority, I would burn a lot of my fab because he could see a good portion of the season as well, and he could be really a nice trade piece when we start thinking that Bell might come back. Number 3, Joe Mixon, a guy that we've been high on as a show, 20 fantasy points. He had 95 yards on the ground, 1 rushing touchdown, another 54 yards receiving, used as a 3-down back, so that's super exciting. We knew he had that potential from last year, and they seem to be putting it together, which is good. Against, to be fair, a kind of rough defense. And then a couple other notable finishes. Adrian Peterson, 20.6 Jay Ajayi, 20.2. Saquon Barkley, 18.8. Those are your top running backs. Wide receivers, Tyreek Hill looked like he was just having a field day. Like he was there, and as small as he is, because he's not a tall guy, he looked like a man among boys, just out-maneuvering everybody, racing to the edges, and nobody was able to catch him. He went out and just had an amazing game. 169 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. Phenomenal day for him. Deshaun Jackson coming out of nowhere. We were thinking he was probably going to be the number 3 wide receiver, but he went out there. He got 5 receptions, was all it took for 26.6 fantasy points, 146 yards receiving, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Holy crap. And then Kenny Stills. We said somebody's got to get the volume in Miami, and it was Kenny Stills. Wasn't really a lot of volume, to be fair. 4 catches on 5 targets, but he turned that into 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. Look, he's the wide receiver 1 of Miami. He's got a floor because of that, and his ceiling is obviously decently high, so he's a guy that's probably worth not going out, getting if he's available. He's probably available in some more shallow leagues. He's only owned in about 69% of leagues, so he's probably out there in smaller leagues. So he's a guy definitely worth picking up and stashing. And top tight ends. Oh, they were the top guys, and then there was everyone else. And man, it seems like every single year we start getting hyped on tight ends, and then it just kind of doesn't materialize. To be fair, it's just week 1, so we have to see how it all kind of comes around. As we all know, September football is basically the preseason now, so everybody breaks off rust and kind of gets their timing down. But Jared Cook was your top tight end, 22.5 fantasy points, so 180 yards. Jared Cook looking awesome. Guys, what did you think of Jared Cook?
He looked all right. He looked all right in this new offense with Gruden, man. It looked like Derek Carr was, getting him the ball. I mean, this is 3rd season with them. So it's it was looking pretty good for Jared Cook, man. He was looking real reliable.
Jason?
Yeah, he was targeted more than any other receiver on that offense. And yeah, I mean, the great thing about him is he is like a really, really big receiver, but then when he gets the ball, he uses that body weight. I mean, there was one where he went for 30 yards in one pass, and he just bowled through like 4 guys to get there. So it looked really, really good. I like Jared Cook.
There you go. I'm wondering what his ownership is right now. I don't have it in front of me, but he's a guy who we're sure is rostered.
70%.
70% owned? Okay. So, I mean,
71.2%.
So he's out there. He's a guy that you could get. He's not going to be featured in our waiver wire section, but you could take a look, see if he's out there. Could be something worth stashing, especially if this continues to be the case. Could also be because the Rams' defense is very, very good, and maybe the tight ends across the middle are the only thing that was really working for them in the passing game. Who really knows? It's just such a small sample size to work against. Like, I always like to bring up fantasy points against stats, but it's too early in the season to use that. It's too unreliable. So yeah, Jared Cook. Number 2, Will Disley. Disley, I can never say his name right the first time. Seattle Seahawks went out for 105 yards and a touchdown, 16.5 fantasy points. Rob Gronkowski going out 123 yards, 1 touchdown. Did fumble the ball once, which is what knocked him out of the number 2 spot for 16.3 fantasy points. And honorable mention there, Eric Ebron, a guy that I was high on. You guys did not enjoy at all. 59 yards and a touchdown.
Keep moving.
Jordan Reed, 10.8, George Kittle 9, Kyle Rudolph 7.1. Those are some of your top performers. And now we get to the duds, the guys that let us down, the guys that make you just want to quit fantasy football or find somebody to punch. And we'll run through these pretty quickly. So at the top we have Marcus Mariota, 1.62 fantasy points. Now, obviously, not really his fault. He did get hurt. He has an elbow injury on his throwing arm, so he's expected to potentially miss some time, as we'll get into in the news. It's still kind of up in the air, so we're going to see as we learn more. Tough day for the Titans, especially with Delaney Walker, but we'll get to that as well. Sam Bradford went out for 2.82 fantasy points. Jason, what happened?
I don't even want to talk. It was such a bad game for the Cardinals. It just looked completely off rhythm.
That's the extent of the analytics.
That's it. Well, I mean, over 20.
You guys always complain when I start deep diving into the Cardinals game. So
we do complain.
I'm not complaining. I asked the question. I genuinely wanted to know.
Complain. No, we do.
All right, I'll tell you what happened. Okay.
Keep it brief.
Okay, I'll keep it brief. The cog in that offense is David Johnson. Everybody knows that.
Yeah.
They throw the ball to David Johnson. They hand the ball to David Johnson. They went away from David Johnson. When you go away from David Johnson, your offense stops moving. That's what happened.
And they will probably learn from that, you would think. So, yeah, there you go.
I would hope.
Nick Foles, 4.08 fantasy points. That was a surprising total when it was all said and done for how that game played out. So, CJ, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, listen, it was it was a sloppy game for the offense. But look, Nick Foles, he had not such a good game. But I did not expect people to start him. If you did, I apologize for you starting him. It was a bad move by your part. But the game is going to get better. He's going to get better, and he's probably only going to be playing maybe 2 more games, maybe. Probably 1 more game, really, and then and that's going to be it. And then it's going to be Wentz's time.
Yep, fingers crossed there. Of course, then a couple other honorable mentions. We have Derek Carr for 6.22 fantasy points. Eli Manning, 7.16 fantasy points. Jason, that was your sit of the week, right?
That was my sit, yeah.
All right, well done. Dak Prescott, 8.7 fantasy points. That Cowboys offense looked like it was completely lost out there without Dez Bryant, of all things. I heard a show talking about how, I wonder if Dez Bryant's going to get a phone call in the future. I highly doubt it, but kind of funny to think about.
From Dallas.
Matt Ryan obviously struggled, 8.84 fantasy points. Ben Roethlisberger continuing his struggles on the road. Can we talk for a second about how the Cleveland Browns didn't lose a game? And how in the most Cleveland Browns fashion, they were in a position to win it, and they botched it. But yeah, Ben Roethlisberger struggling on the road, as per usual, in a divisional matchup, 11 fantasy points. Jimmy Garoppolo, 11.4. Deshaun Watson, 13.4. That was a big letdown for all those people who were thinking, he's going to come back and be exactly what he was last year before he got hurt, because that's not ever going to be the case. Not that he'll never be that guy again, but there's no way he's coming back off injury in his first game against the Patriots, who've had a whole offseason to prepare, and he was going to go out there and probably light up the world. So, yeah, that's those are some of the top guys who you probably started, especially in some of your deeper leagues, and probably let you down. Running backs. Now, there's a lot here. Alfred Morris, of course, there was all the rumors he was supposed to be the top guy. We heard that he was supposed to be the starter, at least get the start of the game for the 49ers. Went out, did 1.8 fantasy points, so that was a big letdown there. LaShawn McCoy, CJ's sit of the week, 2.1 fantasy points. Derrick Henry's CJ's start of the week, so that's kind of upsetting. 3.1 fantasy points. Yeah, that's rough. Back to back. Jamal Williams, 4.7 fantasy points. Kareem Hunt, 4.9. That was surprising with the way that game went. Devonta Freeman, 5. We all knew that. Matt Breida, who did actually get the majority, 5.1 fantasy points. We have Leonard Fournette, who got hurt, which, man, that sucked. 5.5 fantasy points. Alex Collins, 5.9. And Chris Carson, 5.9. So these are some of the top guys who definitely let you down in your fantasy.
My set of the week. My set of the week was Chris Carson too, right? No. That was from LaShawn McCoy.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
You probably thought about it.
That was actually.
I thought about it.
That was actually me.
There you go.
The Seahawks.
No,
there you go.
Oh, yeah, true. You did say that, Jason. Okay, so there we go. So we got some good exposure there.
We got there.
I was going to say maybe on your Periscope, CJ, but not on the show list. Wide receivers who let you down. Chris Hogan. 1.1 fantasy points.
Griffin?
Yeah.
You led the people wrong.
It's all right. It's fine. It's one game. It's all right. It's one game. Keep moving.
I accept responsibility. Though, as I say many times, this is week 1, and we can only go off what we were seeing and hearing in the preseason. So that narrative still stands. We'll see how it plays out. Alan Hearns, 2 fantasy points. So that's a thing.
Good job, Alan.
Yep. Sammy Watkins, 2.1 fantasy points. Oh, man. Surprising, again, with the way that game went. Pierre Garçon, 2.1. Jamison Crowder, 3.2. Sterling Shepard, 4.8. Keenan Cole, because somebody had to be awesome in Jacksonville, right? Nope. 5.4. Allen Robinson, 6.1. Not a back-breaking performance, but not what you hoped for. Corey Davis, 6.2, and this kind of exceeds our normal threshold, but only by 0.1 points, and that is DeAndre Hopkins, guy you expect to go out there and put up about 20 points against a matchup that seemed decent on paper for him, 7.1. Yep. Not good, but as we said many times on and off the show, they're going to take away your best option in New England, and they knew that they had to take away DeAndre Hopkins, and that's what they really did a decent job of throughout the game. Tight ends who let you down. Now, this is just comedic.
What the crap,
because it's typical of the position. So our threshold here for what's considered a bust is much less. It's usually sub 5 points, but a couple of them we threw in here just because they're worth mentioning. Travis Kelce, 0.6 fantasy points.
It's
almost
all
like
right.
nobody scored in Kansas City
except for
Tyreek
Tyreek Hill.
Hill.
Yeah, amazing. He had a crazy day. Jimmy Graham, 0.8 fantasy points, which also, this is the second year in a row he started the season with a 0.8 fantasy point game. I thought that was kind of a fun stat to throw out there. Last year with the Seahawks, this year with the Packers. David Njoku, 1.3 fantasy points, so that's disappointing. Trey Burton, 1.5. That let a lot of us fantasy Twitter truthers out there down. Evan Ingram, 1.8. Tough matchup, not surprised. Austin Hooper, 2.4. Austin Safarian-Jenkins, 2.5. Greg Olsen going down with a foot injury, 3.3 fantasy points. Antonio Gates, 3.6. Not surprised. He was my set of the week. He just got back. I'm surprised he got that many, honestly. Jack Doyle, not Eric Ebron. Jack Doyle, 4 fantasy points. Benjamin Watson, 4.4. Tyler Eifert, 4.4. That was your start of the week, wasn't it, CJ?
Yeah, I think so.
Rough. But we all got our sits right, I think, so it's all good. Zach Ertz, 4.8. Shocking. And then Delaney Walker, 5.2. Oh, and then the ankle injury, of course.
Oh, man.
Rough. Which let's go ahead and, I guess, from there, transition right into the news, because we've already hit on most of it just by running through these players. And we'll start at the quarterback position, as we always do. As we mentioned, Marcus Mariota, Tennessee Titans quarterback, Marcus Mariota, that is. He is reportedly still being evaluated for his elbow injury on his throwing side. His status for week number 2 very much still up in the air. And that's rough. That's a tough loss for this team that was posed to have maybe a quite competitive season. And with the losses that they've already sustained through the preseason and week 1, you have to question if they went from being a potential competitor to win that division to bottom of the barrel. What say you guys?
Well,
I've seen Blaine Gabbert in action as a starter, and there's some things to like about it, but no, he doesn't have the upside of Marcus Mariota. So if Mariota is not available for the rest of the season, I would definitely think that Titans do not have a very rosy outlook.
Yeah, I have to agree.
Well, there you go. Let's move on to the running back position, where Jacksonville Jaguars running back Leonard Fournette, his hamstring injury is not believed to be serious. Head coach Doug Marrone said he considers it to be, quote, minor, end quote. Now, we talked about how this guy was coming into the season a little bit under his playing weight, and that was trying to be more versatile, maybe trying to pick up some speed, whatever the case may be. But he's always been a powerful north-south runner, so that got on my radar. I'm pretty sure we talked about that a couple times on the show. And he went out and got hurt. So you're starting to wonder if injuries are just a part of owning him. Is he an injury-prone guy? I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, look, it's just a second year. Yeah, I got you. He came up last year, even in the draft time, it had a little chink in the armor. But I think, look, I don't know. It's just I feel like it's too early to with it being a second year to say that he's injury prone. Maybe this is third year in a row. He's missing consecutive games. Okay, then I can say that, but it's still too early for me.
There you go. All right, well, let's move on. New England Patriots running back Jeremy Hill tore his ACL and will miss the remainder of the 2018 season. Tough for him. Potentially a big loss for the team, who is trying to be versatile. But this is, as bad as it sounds, it's good for fantasy because at least this adds a little bit more clarity as it dilutes that backfield a little bit. So, Jeremy Hill, he will miss what was hoping for him to be a nice comeback season and hopefully potentially cash on a bigger contract down the line. So we'll see what happens with him in the future. Going to the wide receiver position, we have Seattle Seahawks wide receiver Doug Baldwin with a grade 2 partial MCL tear. The team is still trying to figure out exactly how much time he's expected to miss. So there goes the top option. I have to assume that everyone's going out to get Tyler Lockett at this point.
Lockett.
Brandon Marshall had a touchdown. So, I mean, they've got options there. But I think that Tyler Lockett's probably the priority. He had a very good week. He didn't make our top list, but he had a good week. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
I mean, hey, if you want to deep dive in your need at wide receivers, then I would say go for Tyler Lockett. I definitely would say stay away from Brandon Marshall, but yeah, you can do Tyler Lockett.
Who else is going to catch touchdowns there?
You said what?
I've said many times I don't trust anybody on this Seattle Seahawks offense this year. It's scary, and just like I said, in last show, I said I'm concerned that we're going to see some injuries because of the way this team is built, and now we got a partial MCL tear. So, yeah, I would stay away from Seattle. There's a lot of other options out there.
There you go. And the tight end position, of course, as we already mentioned, Tennessee Titans tight end Delaney Walker dislocated his ankle with confirmed ligament damage. His season is all but officially over. We haven't heard the official word yet, but he's not going to be able to play on this, and I don't think the expectation is he'll be able to return during the season. So that's a tough way to go out for a very aging veteran at the tight, an old, reliable, underrated tight end at the position. So that's a tough loss for Tennessee. Arguably Marcus Mariota's favorite weapon, provided Marcus Mariota can come back. So again, the Titans, they're kind of up against it already after week 1. And we also mentioned Greg Olsen, of course, with dealing with a foot injury. More updates to come with him. And with that, let's get to why everybody is here. I mean, I'm sure everybody enjoys the recap as much as I do. But the reason we're here to talk about some of our top waiver wire targets for week number 2. And we'll start off by starting at the running back position because we go through, usually with our starts and sits, and on our other shows we'll get to, especially with a lot of write-ins, we talk about quarterback streamers. But here, we'll start running back, wide receiver, tight end. We all have one guy that we're definitely recommending that you target for your waiver wires. And I'm going to start off with TJ Yeldon. He's owned in 4.2% of fantasy leagues, and he is the guy behind Leonard Fournette. If Leonard Fournette cannot go, he's the guy that's going to step in and play. Had a decent week when Leonard Fournette went down, and I think that he is an obvious situation where he's going to go in there, have a great workload ahead of him, and a great opportunity to perform until Leonard Fournette comes back. And he's a guy you can probably get for cheap because he's going to probably be overlooked. So he's a guy I would definitely go out and look for. Go get yourselves Leonard Fournette. CJ, your guy.
My guy is Philip Lindsay, man.
Sorry, TJ Yeldon. Leonard Fournette said. I said the wrong name. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, my God. Listen, Philip Lindsay is my guy, man. He's a Broncos running back. Look, everybody was excited about Royce Freeman. I was too. But, look, the majority of the catches and touches were quite similar for both of these guys. So, look, I think if you lost out on Royce Freeman, man, I think you can go get Philip Lindsay. He's definitely available, man. Only 1%. So, definitely go out and get this guy.
My guy is, funny enough, this is the very first player that I ever recommended that you pick up on waiver wire when I first started with this show. There's a little history for you. Jalen Richard in Oakland. You know, when Oakland decided to go away from Marshawn Lynch, which was really, really stupid when they did. But when they did, they really leaned on Jalen Richard, and not just through rushing, but through passing. He actually had more receiving yards than he did rushing yards. 24 rushing, 55 receiving. He scored a pretty good amount, especially PPR. This is a really good option. And if they're going to go change of pace, this is the guy that they have proven that they're going to lean on at least through the first game. So Jalen Richard is only owned in 0.3% of leagues. He is available. I would go ahead and grab him, put him on your bench because he might just get you a few points.
I agree. I mean, yeah, somebody's got to do it, right? So with that, let's move on to our wide receivers. And I'm going to start off with Quincy Enunwa. Look, while the game was in hand, Quincy Enunwa was actually getting the majority of the volume. He was pretty much shut down in the second half, but he was very, very good. He had 10 targets on the game, 6 receptions. He pulled in 63 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he had himself a good week, 12.3 fantasy points, and he's a guy that I think is going to be kind of that more workhorse, more of a PPR option as well in the Jets offense. And I thought we saw that on Monday night, and I would like a piece of that going forward. He's only owned in 1% of leagues, so if you lost a wide receiver or you need some depth at the position, honestly, go out and grab Quincy Enunwa. He's looking to be a decent prospect over a lot of those other guys who's probably going to be targeted, so go get him. CJ, your guy.
I always mess up his name, but it's like Geronimo Allison.
Yep.
The Packers wide receiver, man. Look, he had a nice, good opening game for the Packers, man, and Aaron Rodgers was looking for him. And listen, to me, he looks like he's going to be that next guy, that B guy for them. You know, Randall Cobb, you know, he had an okay game, but the deep balls he was throwing to this dude, man. So look, he's only owned at 9.2% of leagues. I like what he's doing in the offense, man. I think if you are hurting for wide receivers and you want that extra play, maybe a deep dive, maybe a flex dude, this is a guy you could go get.
There you go. And now I will say, Jason, your guy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. My guy, out of Dallas, Cole Beasley. The reason I say Cole Beasley is because he actually had 8 targets. He caught 7 of those, went for 73 yards. He was getting a lot of touches, and a lot of the receiving yardage went to Cole Beasley. He's an underneath guy. Dak Prescott used him as kind of a security blanket, and I think that's going to be the case moving forward. I'm going to get some touches. If he gets a touchdown or two, he's going to be a really nice piece for you to have. So Cole Beasley, only owned in 3.7% of leagues. Pretty good pickup, I think.
There you go. And at the tight end position, I am telling you guys to go and pick up my guy, Eric Ebron. Former first-round pick of the Detroit Lions, now with the Indianapolis Colts, who love to feature their tight ends. Eric Ebron, and I know he had a very down day, but Jack Doyle were two of the highest volume targets in this offense. And I think he's very much a go-to guy for this Indianapolis Colts red zone. That 26-yard touchdown that he had, awesome. And I talk about this all the time. Andrew Luck loves to target his tight ends in the red zone. And he went out and he got it done in 1 week and against a pretty decent opponent. So I think that going forward, it'll be a little bit shaky. Obviously, if you're streaming tight ends, you can't expect there to be a super high floor, but the ceiling is pretty high with Eric Ebron. So he's a guy that's definitely worth rostering. And in good matchups, especially, putting him in. He might even become a more sure thing. So I like Eric Ebron a lot. Owned in 38% of leagues. A little bit higher than all the other guys we're recommending today, but he's a guy that I really would just want to roster. So that's just me. CJ, your guy.
My guy is Will Disley out for Seattle. Listen, man, Luke Wilson's gone. Jimmy Grant is gone. Who is going to be there to catch the ball? Because in the Seattle's offense, especially with Doug Baldwin down, you need pass catchers, and that Russell Wilson looks for the tight end, and Will Disley is the guy. So, guys, if you're hurting a tight end, and you are, this is the guy you want to go get. He is definitely out there. 1% owned, man. Go get you some Will Disley.
There you go. And Jason, your guy. Take us home.
All right. So Delaney Walker is down in Tennessee. What does that mean? That means Luke Stalker is going to get his opportunity to catch some more passes. He actually caught the longest pass thrown by Mariota in that game, 31 yards. So he scored a decent amount for a tight end. But he's going to, like I said, he's going to get the opportunity to become that receiving tight end. So I would go get him. He's going to be a starter.
And there you go. Those are our waiver wire pickups for week number 2. Now, obviously, there's a lot of other guys out there, but these are some of the top guys that we are definitely targeting. And, God, I can't wait until we get a couple more weeks into the season so we can have more analytics to back this up. But, yeah, a lot of this is eyeball test. It's 1 week of play, so it's tough to really build an argument. It's guys that we like the tape, we like what we saw, we like the situation, and in a lot of cases, we like their upcoming matchups. So that's what's going into these guys for this week. If you have any other questions or conundrums between players to pick up, feel free to message us on Twitter at the FF Fanatics. You can email us at thefantasyfootballfanatics@gmail.com. Facebook is at facebook.com/thefantasyfootballfanatics. We're all over the place, or you can follow us individually. I'm at GPalmerFFF. CJ is at CJ Hickman89. Jason is at Jason Cabrera 13. And, of course, there's this awesome thing called the Friday Show, when we'll be giving you all of our starts and sits for week number 2. Yeah, with that being said, any parting thoughts, guys?
Hey, man, Mike, congratulations, Desert Rats. You won. You get that one. But like Spider-Man says, everybody gets one.
And that's now yours. He's coming for you.
There you go.
He just made the list, right,
Come on,
CJ?
Spider-Man.
You made the list.
Any thoughts, Jason?
Hey, CJ, good game, man.
Shut up.
This stuff. I'm trying to be nice.
I don't want you. Screw you and your niceness.
Which league did you guys play in?
We played in the expert league.
Oh, in our league of record? Okay.
Yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah. I promptly stomped him, so he's not in a good mood.
Snap! All right. I think I had the highest performing team, didn't I? I don't have to go back and look.
And I was second, yeah.
Nice. All right, that's a good start for the show. All right. So with that being said, yeah, we play fantasy football too, guys. How about that? We're real people. All right, with that, we're out of here. Everyone, take care. Have a great week. We will see you on Friday. Bye.
Life in the fast lane, moving at the speed of life, and I can't slow down. Only got a gallon in the gas tank, but I'm almost at the finish line, so I can't stop now. I don't really know where I'm headed, just enjoying the ride. Just gonna roll till I drop and ride till I die.